Tonight, something big is about to happen. Not outside of you, not in the noise of the world, but right here, in the quiet place of your heart. You may have come into this moment tired, confused, or wounded by the battles of life. You may feel overlooked, unheard, or uncertain about tomorrow. But listen carefully. This night is not ordinary. This night is an appointment, a turning point, written long before you ever arrived. Because tonight, your heart is about to awaken. A transformative moment is approaching. Your inner change begins tonight. There are moments in life that look ordinary on the surface, but carry a weight far greater than anything the eye can see. This is one of those moments. It may be night where you are, or perhaps only the night of your circumstances, but something within this moment is stirring, shifting, preparing to unfold. A transformative moment is not announced with lightning or thunder. It does not need applause or recognition. It begins quietly, softly, in the hidden chambers of the heart. And tonight, this inner transformation is searching for you. Every significant change in life begins long before the world sees it. A seed grows in darkness before it rises toward the sun. A child forms in silence before its first cry. Strength is shaped in hidden places before it becomes victory. And in the same way, your breakthrough doesn't begin when the world notices. It begins when you notice that something inside you is awakening. Tonight is the night when that awakening begins. Deep within you is a space where dreams sleep, where strength waits, where courage has been quietly preparing for its return. Perhaps you have ignored those inner whispers because life has demanded so much of you. Perhaps pain silenced your hope. Perhaps disappointment convinced you that change is for others, never for you. But tonight, those doubts lose their voice because something greater is calling you forward. A transformative moment is not something you chase, it is something you recognize. And if you listen closely, you will realize that this moment has been forming through every challenge you endured, every tear you shed, every lesson you learned the hard way. Nothing in your story has been wasted. Even the parts you wish never happened have prepared you for what is about to come. Tonight marks the shift where your inner world begins to align with the strength you were always meant to carry. Inner change starts when you understand that you are not defined by what has happened to you, but by what you choose to become next. Many people wait for life to change before they change themselves, but that is not how transformation works. Real change begins within. It starts when you take responsibility for your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. It begins when you stop allowing fear to write your next chapter. It begins when you decide that the person you have been is not the person you are required to remain. Tonight, something inside you is urging you to rise above the patterns that kept you stuck. It is telling you that you no longer need to carry the burdens that have weighed heavily on your heart. It is reminding you that every moment of growth begins with a shift in your thinking. You may have believed you were powerless, but tonight you are being reminded that the power to transform has always lived within you. The transformation approaching is not just emotional, it is spiritual, mental, and personal. You are entering a season where clarity will replace confusion, where strength will replace fear, where direction will replace uncertainty. But transformation requires that you prepare your heart. It requires that you open yourself to the possibility of something greater. Tonight is the moment where you choose to stop shrinking to fit into the expectations of others. Tonight is the moment you begin to expand into the fullness of who you are meant to be. Every voice of doubt that has told you you can't is being confronted by the quiet truth rising within you that says you can. Every wound that has told you you are not enough is being challenged by the undeniable fact that you have survived everything meant to break you. Every insecurity that whispered you don't deserve more is meeting the reality that you were born with purpose, intention, and potential far greater than your fears. Something big is approaching, but the biggest change will not be what happens around you, it will be what happens within you. Before any door opens outwardly, a door opens inwardly. Before life shifts, your mindset shifts, Before opportunities come, your belief grows. And tonight, your belief is rising, maybe only by a little, maybe only by a spark. But even the smallest spark can become a fire. Transformation never begins when things are perfect. It begins when you are honest about where you are. It begins when you face your doubts, fears, and insecurities, not with shame, but with understanding. You are not weak for feeling these things. You are human. But tonight, your humanity becomes the foundation for your transformation. You do not need to be flawless to grow. You need only be willing. Tonight is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to the person you were before fear got in the way. The person who dreamed without limits. The person who believed in possibilities. The person who felt called to something greater. That version of you is not gone. It is waiting. And tonight, it begins to wake up again. Transformation is a journey, not a moment. But every journey begins with a single decision. The decision to prepare your heart. The decision to open yourself to change. The decision to believe that you are worthy of becoming more. And tonight, that decision begins to form inside you. You may not see the full picture yet, and you don't need to. You only need to be willing to take the first step. A transformative moment approaches when your spirit becomes tired of settling for less. When your mind becomes tired of circling old thoughts. When your heart becomes tired of carrying old wounds. When your soul whispers, it's time. And tonight, your soul is whispering exactly that. Tonight is the turning point where your inner world begins to shift, preparing the way for what your outer world will soon reflect. Your inner change begins tonight. You must release old fears and prepare your heart for a new level of purpose. There comes a time in every person's life when holding on becomes more dangerous than letting go. A time when fear, no matter how familiar it feels, no matter how deeply it has intertwined itself with your identity, must be released if you are ever going to rise into the purpose waiting ahead. Fear keeps you safe, but only in the sense that it keeps you small. It protects you, but only by keeping you from stepping into the fullness of who you were designed to become. And if you want to walk into a new level of purpose, that fear can no longer be your shield. Tonight marks the beginning of a release, a letting go, a moment where you loosen your grip on everything that once held you together but now holds you back. Fear is tricky. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it disguises itself as caution, as logic, as responsibility, as practicality. Fear often tells you it is protecting you, when in reality it is imprisoning you. It convinces you that the unknown is dangerous, that the future is unpredictable, that change is risky. It reminds you of every failure you have experienced, every rejection, every disappointment, every time you opened your heart and were met with pain. Fear uses your history as evidence that you cannot step into your destiny. And without realizing it, you begin to accept the voice of fear as truth. But tonight, that voice begins to lose its power. Because tonight, you are invited to release what no longer serves you. To let go of the fears that have changed your potential. To loosen the grip of doubts that have suffocated your courage. To clear the space in your heart so something new, something purposeful can finally take root. You cannot step into your next season while you are still clinging to the fears of the last one. You cannot carry old beliefs into a new chapter and expect your story to change. Preparing your heart for purpose requires releasing what contradicts that purpose, and fear has been your loudest contradiction. Fear is not just an emotion, it is a memory replaying itself. It is the shadow of a past moment trying to darken your present one. It is the echo of mistakes, the replay of heartbreak, the residue of disappointments. Every time you tried and failed, fear took note. Every time you believed and were let down, fear grew stronger. Every time you hoped and that hope seemed wasted, fear whispered that believing again would only hurt. Fear builds itself out of your wounds. But wounds are meant to heal, not rule your life. You cannot prepare for a new level of purpose without acknowledging the fears you carry. Some fears are obvious: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being enough. But some fears hide deeper: fear of success, fear of responsibility, fear of change, fear of losing people, fear of outgrowing familiar places, fear of stepping into the unknown where you no longer have control. These hidden fears often limit you more than the visible ones. And tonight, those hidden corners of your heart begin to open. Purpose requires space. Purpose requires clarity. Purpose requires courage. And fear, left unattended, takes up all three. When your heart is full of fear, there is no room for purpose to enter. You cannot receive direction when fear is speaking louder than intuition. You cannot hear your calling when fear is shouting over every possibility. Releasing fear does not mean you suddenly feel brave. It means you stop allowing fear to lead. It means you recognize that fear is not a prophecy, it is a reaction. Fear is not truth, it is a feeling. And feelings can change when you decide to change your perspective. Fear wants control. Purpose wants surrender. Fear wants certainty. Purpose requires trust. Fear wants comfort. Purpose demands growth. And the space between comfort and growth is where your destiny waits. Tonight, you begin moving into that space. Preparing your heart for a new level of purpose means choosing courage even when fear remains. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more. Something inside you already knows that you are meant for more than anxiety, hesitation, and second guessing. Something inside you knows that your potential is bigger than your fear. Something inside you knows that there is a calling on your life that will require boldness, resilience, and a readiness to step into unfamiliar territory. Fear tries to remind you of who you were. Purpose reminds you of who you can become. To prepare your heart, you must begin letting your future speak louder than your past. You must begin believing in possibilities that fear tells you not to imagine. You must begin trusting that even though the path ahead is unclear, you will not walk it alone. Fear might still whisper, but its whisper will no longer determine your direction. Every time you release a fear, even a small one, you make room for something greater. When you release the fear of failure, you make room for opportunity. When you release the fear of rejection, you make room for connection. When you release the fear of the unknown, you make room for growth. When you release the fear of being unworthy, you make room for purpose. This release is not a single moment, it is a process. But every process begins with a choice. And tonight, your heart begins choosing freedom. Preparing your heart also requires vulnerability. It requires honesty about what scares you. Not to shame yourself, but to free yourself. You cannot conquer what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot heal what you do not reveal. Tonight, your heart begins to open, not in weakness, but in readiness. Because vulnerability is not a crack in your armor. It is the doorway through which purpose enters. You are not releasing fear because you are strong enough to live without it. You are releasing fear because you are strong enough to grow beyond it. That strength has always been inside you. Even fear could not erase it. Even pain could not weaken it. Even doubt could not destroy it. That strength is rising again now, preparing you for what is coming next. A fear-filled heart cannot hold a purpose-filled future. That is why this release is necessary. That is why this moment is sacred. Something new is calling you forward, and fear cannot go where purpose is leading you. Your heart is preparing itself for a new level, a deeper meaning, a higher calling, and that preparation begins with release. Tonight marks the beginning of making room for the person you are becoming. Your past does not define you. Tonight awakens a stronger, braver version of you. There is a moment in every person's life when they finally stop looking at their past as a prison and begin to see it as the soil from which their strength was grown. Many people walk through life carrying the weight of old decisions, old failures, old heartbreaks, and old versions of themselves that no longer reflect who they are now. They hold on to memories as if those memories hold authority over their future. But tonight, Something different is beginning to awaken inside you, something stronger, something braver, something that refuses to be shaped by what used to be true. Your past is not your identity, it is your history. And history is meant to be learned from, not lived in. Too often people let the things behind them dictate the direction ahead. One mistake becomes a label. One failure becomes a limitation. One season of pain becomes a lifetime of self-doubt. But tonight, that cycle begins to break, because tonight you are reminded that the past can explain you, but it cannot define you. Only you and the choices you make now carry the authority to shape who you become next. It is easy to believe that because something has happened before, it will happen again. If you have been hurt, you expect more hurt. If you have been disappointed, you expect disappointment. If you have failed, you expect another failure. The mind uses the past as a manual for the future. Even when the past was written in pain, confusion, or fear. But tonight, your mind begins to shift. Tonight, your heart begins to understand that the past was preparation, not prediction. Everything you have gone through was shaping you, strengthening you, and molding you into someone capable of standing taller than you ever have before. When you look back at your story, you may see chaos, mistakes, and brokenness. But look again, and you will also see resilience, survival, and growth. You have endured storms that would have crushed someone who wasn't built like you. You have walked through moments of darkness and still found enough strength to keep going. You have faced things that could have hardened you, yet here you are, still open, still hopeful, still willing to rise. That alone is proof that a stronger, braver version of you has always been waiting underneath the surface. Tonight is the night that version begins to emerge. The past often tries to cling to your identity because it is familiar. Even painful memories can feel safer than stepping into the unknown. But familiarity is not freedom. You were not meant to stay trapped in chapters that were only meant to teach you, not define you. You were never meant to remain the person you were in your darkest moments. You were meant to grow beyond them. And every time you choose courage over fear, growth over comfort, healing over bitterness, you awaken that stronger version of yourself. A stronger you is not one who never breaks. It is one who knows how to rebuild. A braver you is not one who never feels fear. It is one who chooses to keep moving despite it. Tonight, your courage begins to rise, not because your past disappears, but because you are no longer giving it the power to control you. Tonight, you reclaim your voice, your strength, your identity from the hands of old experiences that no longer represent who you are becoming. There is a turning point in every transformation where you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What did this teach me?" That shift alone is powerful because it removes the past from the throne of your life and places your growth in its rightful position. Every hurt taught you compassion. Every failure taught you resilience. Every setback taught you patience. Every ending taught you how to begin again. And tonight, these lessons form the foundation of a stronger, braver, wiser you. You are not the same person you were when those painful moments happened. You have new understanding, new perspective, new strength, and new determination. The person you were then acted with the knowledge they had at the time. The person you are now carries wisdom shaped by experience. You must not judge your past self with the insight you only gained later. Instead, honor the version of you who survived long enough to grow into who you are now. That version was doing their best with what they knew, and their efforts, even if imperfect, carried you to this moment where a new you begins to rise. Tonight awakens a braver version of you, because bravery is born in moments of decision. The decision to move forward, the decision to stop repeating old patterns, the decision to forgive yourself for what you didn't know then, the decision to stop defining yourself by past chapters that no longer reflect your future direction. Bravery is not loud. Sometimes it is the quiet commitment to keep becoming better than the person you were yesterday. Strength is also awakening in you tonight, not the kind of strength that comes from pretending everything is fine, but the kind that comes from acknowledging your pain and choosing healing anyway. True strength is built in the moments you thought you couldn't endure, yet somehow did. It is built in the nights you cried but didn't quit. It is built in the days you felt empty yet kept giving whatever you could. Strength is not perfection, it is perseverance. And tonight that perseverance begins to form into power. For too long, you may have looked at your past as a reason to hold back, but tonight you begin to see it as proof of your resilience. Nothing you have faced has defeated you. Nothing that broke your heart has kept you from moving forward. Nothing that tried to diminish you has succeeded. If your past had the power to destroy you, you wouldn't be here right now. The fact that you are still standing means something unbreakable has always lived inside you, waiting for the right moment to come alive. That moment is tonight. A stronger version of you rises when you stop viewing yourself through the lens of regret. A braver version of you rises when you stop telling the same story of limitation. When you begin to believe that purpose, hope, and possibility still exists for you, even after everything you've been through, you awaken the part of yourself that was made for transformation. And tonight, that part is coming to life. Your past can no longer define you because you are no longer living in it. You are stepping into something new, something deeper, something greater. A stronger, braver, more resilient version of you is emerging, not because the past is forgotten, but because it is no longer in control. This awakening marks the beginning of becoming who you were always capable of being. Every setback has shaped you for this exact moment of breakthrough. Life has a way of convincing us that setbacks are signs of failure, punishment, or proof that we are not capable of rising to the level we desire. But setbacks are not the end of the story. They are the chisels that carve strength into your character, clarity into your vision, and purpose into your path. When you look back over your journey, you may remember moments where it felt like everything was falling apart, but what you couldn't see then was that something deeper was being built within you. Every disappointment, every detour, every closed door, every heartbreak, every delay, each one was shaping you quietly, silently, and purposefully for the moment you are approaching now. Setbacks have a way of stripping away illusions, exposing what truly matters, and preparing you for responsibilities and blessings that your old self could not have carried. They force you to confront what you believed about yourself and the world. They push you to question, to reflect, to rebuild. They teach you resilience in ways comfort never could. They stretch your capacity, not to break you, but to strengthen you. And those setbacks often feel like steps backward. They are often the very steps that push you forward into who you are meant to become. Every setback you faced was a lesson disguised as a loss. When something didn't work out the way you hoped, it wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. When a door closed unexpectedly, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. When you were forced to wait longer than you wanted, that wait was not wasted. It was training your patience, sharpening your awareness, and strengthening your trust. Nothing you have gone through has been pointless. Your life is not a collection of random hardships. It is a carefully crafted journey, and every part of it has contributed to the strength you now carry. There were times when you felt stuck, but even in those moments you were becoming stronger. There were times when you felt forgotten, but those were the moments you learned how to find yourself. There were times when you felt abandoned, but those seasons taught you how to stand on your own. There were times when you were pushed to your limits, but those limits expanded, giving you a capacity you never knew you had. Tonight, as you reflect on all you have survived, you begin to understand that your setbacks were not walls, they were building blocks. It is easy to see the pain, but harder to see the progress. Yet every setback left something behind in you that is now essential. A deeper patience, a stronger resolve, a clearer perspective, a wiser heart, a more grounded spirit. You are not the same person who walked through those challenges. You emerged with knowledge, compassion, courage, and a strength that cannot be faked and cannot be taken from you. Setbacks created a version of you that is far more capable and ready than you ever were before. Breakthroughs rarely happen to the unprepared. They come to those who have been stretched, tested, refined, and humbled. You may have been wondering why things took so long, why certain seasons were so hard, why people left, why opportunities slipped away, why your plans fell apart. But those very moments were shaping you into someone who is able to handle the breakthrough that is coming. If everything had worked out easily, you wouldn't have the depth, understanding, or resilience that you now possess. Your setbacks did not weaken you. They fortified you. Sometimes the greatest growth happens in the seasons that feel the most empty. When you had nothing left, you discovered inner strength. When you felt lost, you learned how to listen to your intuition. When you felt broken, you learned how to rebuild piece by piece. When you felt unseen, you learned how to validate yourself. When you felt unprepared, you learned how to trust the process. These experiences didn't come to destroy you, they came to shape you. Tonight marks the moment when you begin to see the connection between your past struggles and your future breakthrough. The things that once hurt you now make sense. The delays that frustrated you now look like divine timing. The experiences that felt unbearable now reveal their purpose. You were not wandering aimlessly, you were being prepared intentionally. A breakthrough is not just a moment of success. It is the moment when preparation meets opportunity. And your preparation came through your setbacks. You learned discipline when things were difficult. You learned patience when everything felt slow. You learned humility when ego was stripped away. You learned gratitude when blessings were scarce. You learned resilience when life knocked you down. These lessons are not small, they are the foundation of who you are becoming. You may not have realized it at the time, but every setback strengthened a part of you that needed to grow. The obstacles taught you determination. The losses taught you clarity. The challenges taught you endurance. The heartbreaks taught you depth. The disappointments taught you trust. And all of it together shaped you for something greater than you imagined. You did not come this far by accident. You did not endure everything just to end up empty-handed. You survived because you were being sharpened. You endured because you were being molded. You kept going because something in you knew that this moment, this breakthrough that is approaching would require everything you learned along the way. Your breakthrough is not a reward. It is a result of your resilience, a result of your commitment, a result of your willingness to rise again and again, a result of all the moments you chose to believe in growth, even when you couldn't see progress. Setbacks forced you to develop a type of strength that success alone could never have created. And now, that strength is exactly what is going to carry you into your next chapter. You are not stepping into this breakthrough as the person you once were. You are stepping into it as someone wiser, stronger, bolder, and more grounded. The version of you that exists tonight could not have existed without the struggle. You needed every lesson. You needed every moment of discomfort. You needed every closed door, because without them, you would not be prepared for what is coming. Every setback has shaped you for this exact moment of breakthrough. Hope, courage, and clarity are ready to rise within you if you choose them tonight. There are certain nights in your life that feel like turning points, even if nothing dramatic happens on the outside. Nights when something within you begins to shift, when the weight that has held you down starts to loosen, when emotions you thought were gone forever begin to stir again. Tonight is one of those nights. Tonight, hope, courage, and clarity stand at the door of your heart, waiting for you to open it. They are not distant ideals. They are not pieces of some future version of you. They are present now, ready to rise within you the moment you choose them. Hope is often the first to fade and the last to return. When life grows heavy, hope becomes quiet. When pain repeats itself, hope becomes cautious. When dreams are delayed, hope hides. But even when buried, hope never dies. It simply waits. It waits for the moment when your heart becomes willing to believe again. And tonight is that moment. Even the smallest spark of hope has the power to change the direction of your life. Hope whispers that your story is not finished. Hope reminds you that better days are still possible. Hope tells you that you are worthy of the future you've been afraid to imagine. Hope rising within you tonight does not mean everything will instantly make sense. It does not mean all your problems will disappear. It means you are preparing your spirit to see possibilities instead of limitations. Hope is the seed of every transformation. It is the force that shifts your focus from what is broken to what can be rebuilt. It pulls you forward even when you have little strength left. And as it rises, it brings with it the quiet belief that your future contains more than your past ever did. But hope alone is not enough. It calls for companion courage. Courage is not loud. It does not always roar. Sometimes courage is simply the steady breath you take when everything in you wants to give up. It is the decision to try again when you have every reason not to. It is the willingness to step into the unknown even when fear trembles in your hands. And tonight, a new level of courage is forming inside you. Courage rises when you stop allowing fear to narrate your story. It rises when you acknowledge your doubts but still choose forward movement. It rises when you realize that your heart has endured too much to settle for a life built on hesitation. Courage is not something you wait to feel. It is something you choose. You choose it when you speak truth over the lies that have held you back. You choose it when you take responsibility for your healing. You choose it when you give yourself permission to outgrow old versions of yourself. Tonight, courage asks you one question. Are you willing to step into who you are becoming? Because everything ahead of you, every opportunity, every breakthrough, every blessing requires courage. Not perfection, not certainty, but courage. The courage to believe you are ready. The courage to trust your inner strength. The courage to walk in your purpose even when the path is unclear. And that courage is ready to rise within you now. Then there is clarity. Clarity is not simply understanding, it is alignment. It is the moment when confusion begins to settle, when the noise inside your mind starts to quiet, when the fog of uncertainty begins to lift. Clarity is not always a sudden revelation, it is often a gentle unfolding, a growing awareness of who you are and what you're meant to do next. Tonight, clarity stands before you, waiting for space to enter your life. You gain clarity when you release distractions that drain your spirit. You gain clarity when you stop forcing things that no longer fit. You gain clarity when you let go of what you cannot control. Clarity comes when you allow truth to rise to the surface, even when that truth is uncomfortable. It comes when you stop running from yourself. And as clarity rises, confusion loses its grip. You begin to see things with new eyes, your relationships, your calling, your values, your direction. Hope gives you possibility. Courage gives you action. Clarity gives you guidance. And all three are ready to rise within you tonight. These qualities are not gifts handed randomly to the lucky. They grow inside anyone willing to make space for them. They grow in hearts that have known pain but refuse to remain defined by it. They grow in minds that have carried doubt but are ready to challenge it. They grow in spirits that have been weary but are ready to rise again. There is a shift happening inside you right now. A shift in the way you see yourself. A shift in the way you interpret your past. A shift in the way you understand your future. This shift is not forced, it is invited. You are not becoming someone new, you are uncovering someone who has been waiting within you. Someone hopeful, someone courageous, someone clear-minded and purpose-driven, someone who refuses to settle for a life beneath their potential. Tonight, you stand at the intersection of what was and what could be. Behind you are the memories that shaped you. Ahead of you are the possibilities that call you. And within you is the strength to choose the direction you want to walk. Hope, courage, and clarity cannot rise without your permission. They grow when you decide to let them in. When you decide that your future deserves your best effort. When you decide that you are worthy of healing, growth, and transformation. Choosing hope means believing that something good is still possible. Choosing courage means acting even when you're afraid. Choosing clarity means listening to the truth inside you instead of the noise around you. Tonight, these qualities are not distant. They are near. They are ready. They are reaching toward you, waiting to be accepted, nurtured, embraced. You do not have to wait for tomorrow. You do not have to wait for everything to make sense. You do not have to wait for the perfect moment. This is the moment. This is the night. This is the beginning of something rising within you that has been dormant for far too long. You may feel tired. You may feel uncertain. You may feel like you've been fighting for so long that you don't know how to hope anymore. But even the smallest flicker of hope can ignite into a flame. Even the quietest act of courage can transform your life. Even the softest whisper of clarity can steer your path. These qualities grow from choices, not conditions. They rise from willingness, not perfection. Tonight, as you breathe, as you reflect, as you open your heart even slightly, something within you is awakening, something strong, something brave, something clear. And that awakening begins with a choice to let hope rise again, to let courage speak louder than fear, to let clarity guide you toward the future that is waiting just beyond this moment.